Hey all, Grolo here. It's finally here. You know I've been waiting for this video. I feel like I've been waiting this video for a year now. The Star Citizen Live Tech Talk with Benoit has aired. It is a doozy. It is 3 hours. I don't know quite how I'm going to dig into this yet. I'm just going to play it by ear. It could be break this into like part 1, 2, 3, or however many parts we need. It really depends on how much I have to say about the various topics. They go into all the goodies that I've been waiting for. Star Citizen technology, development, server meshing, all the things. So I caught bits and pieces of this live, but not the whole thing. So this is going to be my first watch through, like in its entirety. So I don't know entirely what to expect, which is why I don't know exactly how I'm going to break this up and put it on YouTube yet, but we'll figure it out as we go. I have my whiteboard here. It's ready to go in case we need it. Yeah, I'm set. Hopefully you're set. Let's dig in.
Let's get it on.
Hi, everybody. Just gonna let Benoit do that thing in the background. The show's actually started, Benoit, so this will be on the YouTube version. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour, although not in this case, it's going to be a lot longer, out of the end of our week sometimes, and talk to you, the Star Citizen community. We put our developers to the test. We have them answer questions. We have them talk about various aspects of their work. Sometimes we show off really unfortunate plushies that never made it into production. We do all manner of things in this show. On the show this week, we are doing the prophesized sequel to a special edition show that we did back in the beginning of February this year. Now, for those of you who might not remember, or you've joined the project since then, welcome aboard. Back in February this year,
So I waited like
Chris Roberts announced in his letter from the chairman
6 months.
A
It
fundamental
felt like a year.
change in the manner and focus of our development for this year. Benoit and I took to SCL and spent 2 or 3 hours. I don't remember how long.
About 3.
Would have been good to look at that before I came here. To just shoot on everything. Talk about everything under the sun. Figure out what these changes really meant and stuff like this. And we said at the end of that show that we'd be back in roughly about 6 months. So 6 plus 2 is 8. It's 9. Would you expect anything less?
That's right.
So we're back. We're
count.
back today. Do a quick recap.
Something.
All right. First, the Earth cooled. Then the dinosaurs came. Now we're back to talk about a whole variety of topics. This is not your traditional Q&A show where we take questions from the community, although if we see some good questions in the Twitch chat, we might throw them in from time to time. This is our interview format. So we have worked out a series of topics that we want to cover. Based on our previous conversations, we expect this show to go a bit long. So, if you got someplace to go,
like 3 hours long.
Be sure to check out the YouTube replay later. If you'd rather listen to read an AI summary or something on Reddit, I mean, I can't stop you. But yeah, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. We're gonna do what we're gonna do. Let's jump into it. Let me start by introducing our guest, the man who needs no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Benoit Beauséjour. Benoit, how you doing, man?
It's getting better every time. Your pronunciation, it's always going up. It's great. I feel good.
Oh my gosh, I knew it was Benoit, and at the beginning of this show, I said Benoit. I am so sorry. I don't know what I'm thinking. I was reading text from the label, and I don't know why I pronounced it that way. So accept my apologies.
I feel good.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, who did we? We just hired, just added somebody to my team, and I've never she's worked for me for about 6-7 weeks now, and I've never once tried to say her last name out loud because I'm afraid.
It's okay. You can do it.
She's not watching the show, so she doesn't know I'm talking about her now.
Good.
Benoit, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Well, I am a developer and I am the Chief Technology Officer for CIG. That means that I oversee everything technical, so gameplay engineers, engine engineers, graphic engineers, AI engineers,
Big job.
everybody who touches a computer almost, that's basically my job.
And how much of everything that's wrong is your fault?
Well, people on Spectrum would say everything, but yeah, I mean, basically, I empower all the teams to build the game, and so technically, everything kind of is my fault in a way,
Balt's fault. All right, so like I said, we got a lot to talk about today. Who knows how long it's going to take, because it's not like we have any time to rehearse or hash any of this stuff out ahead of time. So we're just going to jump into it.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. So
Doing it
part
live.
one of this show that I'm inventing right now in my head.
Yeah.
I want to call part one the year of playability. So the year of playability is not necessarily a statement that we ever made. We didn't say it in the February show or whatnot. But it comes from that letter from the chairman that went out at the end of last year with I think it was like 2025, a focus on playability. It's a fair assessment of the mission that we set out for ourselves at the end of last year. Have we during the February show? Remember, guys, we're figuring this out as we go along. It's been a busy week. So during that show, we talked a lot about how Star Citizen had been going in one direction for about 10 years. Since the launch of the PU at the end of 2015 and up until the end of 2024 and whatnot, roughly about 10 years there. We were on one kind of mentality. We were on one. It changed a bit when 3.0 came out after that big long period where we didn't ship for 8 months and my beard went crazy and whatnot. But we went to this very feature driven. We were on this very feature driven, building the foundation of the game kind of attitude for so many years, where we didn't take a whole lot of opportunities to stop and look at what was out there and spend time on fixing that and hardening that and so like that. It was always about, we got to get the next thing out. We got to get the next thing out. We got to get the next thing out, because we have many of the same thoughts our backers do. It's like you got to get this stuff out. We decided that in 2025, because of the impending release of Squadron 42 in 2026, and the need to let those people focus on that and getting that closed out and whatnot, we were going to allow the engineers that their focuses remained on Star Citizen to take a step back from new feature work and look at hardening and fixing and addressing a lot of the longstanding issues. Now, I said a lot. I didn't say every. It's as many as we can within the time. It's a 10-year journey towards one direction doesn't get turned around and fixed in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And we said this at the time. Nonetheless,
I
there's
said
still
this too.
people who, we see the same comments, guys. We see the same things like, oh, so much for the year of playability. That was literally my brother. I'm not making fun of anybody else. I'm literally quoting my brother. And if you've ever met my little brother, that's exactly how he sounds, because he plays the game. He plays the game, and I get crap for my little brother. It's not just the backers. It's you, Clark. Welcome to the show. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. It's how all little brothers sound, at least in our heads. I just wanted y'all to I want to make sure everybody knows I was making fun of one specific individual that I share genes with.
I also sound like that sometimes when I talk to John Crew. Like, hey, what about my ship?
So let's talk about this year of playability and how it's gone so far. We said we'd check in six months later. We're roughly here. How's this year of playability gone? What have we done? What have we achieved? Where are we at in our process? Are we happy? Benoit, you do the Benoit thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to go a bit further out than just the beginning of the year, right? Because let's take same date last year. Right?
Okay.
So let's go full 1 year back. The state of the game 1 year in the past was still single server DGS, right? So we're talking about maximum 100 players per game shard, one server simulating all of the universe, no second star system, right? So only one star system. Server performance, not good.
4 or 5
Right.
frames.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky,
If you're
right?
lucky. Like when you load it in.
Like the
We've talked about this a lot on this
parameters
channel.
for us to launch a patch was basically 7-ish, which is horrible if you think about it. And so that was last year, right? So we start from far, right?
We
And
were still
had.
If you go back and look at some of the videos I've done in the past 3 to 6 months, I've done several like State of Star Citizen check-ins, and in each of those videos, I believe I've kind of recapped like this, just to reset expectations, because I think all too often, and some of you in the comments have reaffirmed this, like it's crazy how quickly progress can be taken for granted, right? And I kind of know where he's going with this, and like, you know, when we stopped getting 30Ks, or when players increased from 100 to 600, or whenever I stopped getting stuck in my seat as often, or whatever the case may be, right? When elevators started swallowing us less, and I know elevators are still a running joke, but at least in my experience, they swallow me a whole lot less than they used to. But we can very quickly begin taking all of these things for granted, and then our mind just kind of assumes that, well, that's not a big deal anymore. It can start to feel like we've had that for a while, and now I need the next thing. I need the next bit of progress. But whenever you step back and you just say, okay, what's the last 12 months look like? And there is no argument that anyone can make that the game is not at a much better place today than it was 12 months ago.
We were still in the clutches of 30K.
We're still in the clutches of
Bingo.
30K, correct. So we did have some level of server recovery, but a lot of issues related to it that could have side effects.
Yeah.
Some of them are still present. We'll talk about some of those. And so, you know, fast forward to now, like the assessment is a lot better, I think, in my mind, right? Like, obviously we've had the release of 4.0. Like, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I'm not saying it's been just a straight line.
Mhm.
Like we've taken some dips and then you know, improved the stability and the quality of the game overall. But obviously we have the 4.0 release, which came with static server meshing, which was the element that we needed to free up server performance, right?
Mhm.
So on average now, when we look at server perf, I mean, other than some egregious problems which we've identified, we get per territory stats now. So basically we don't just get like server FPS is X, right? We're gonna know Stanton server FPS is X, or, you know, Hurston server FPS is Y. And so we can compare, depending on which territory, what performance we're getting. And FPS is just one of those parameter, right? There's a lot more.
That's a really good point. Probably not a lot of people are thinking about is we often look at the fidelity of the game that we are interacting with, right? Like we think of fidelity as things like inventory, like physicalized inventory, and you know, I heard pretty soon we're gonna have, like, whenever you put a helmet on the ground, you're gonna see the helmet instead of the box. That's increased fidelity, or you know, the improvements they've made to the scopes over time and what it looks like to look in the scope. That's increasing the fidelity of the game. Like, that's how we tend to think of fidelity, but there is also a fidelity on the back end that the developers are seeing in the form of metrics and statistics. And whenever the entire solar system is being run on one DGS, and you're just looking at the metrics of that DGS, you know, it can be, they could instrument it at a more fine-grained level. But whenever you break things out across multiple DGSs, you're kind of automatically getting an increased level of fidelity on the instrumentation, the visibility, the observability, the metrics that you are getting as a developer. Because as he's saying here, like, now if a server is performing poorly, you can say, oh, well, what's that server running? Is it running Microtech? Is it running Hurston? And if you begin to see patterns, right, like maybe the Hurston DGS often degrades in performance before the Microtech DGS. And if that's the case, that starts to give you information kind of passively that you can begin to act on. Like, hey, look, you know, the Hurston DGS is constantly underperforming the other DGSs. Like, what are we doing in Hurston that's different? and answering that question, like what are we doing on Hurston that's different, that can yield more thoughts and ideas and information that could lead you to find like another root problem that otherwise would have been more difficult to find, right? Like maybe Hurston's running and talking to some service that Microtech's not talking to, or maybe the tram is implemented slightly differently, or who knows? It could be anything. But anyway, that's a really good point that he just made.
But let's stick to FPS just because it's a simple mental model, right? Because it does have an effect on your gameplay. So nowadays, on average, server FPS is up 20 easily, right? Obviously, some zones, like let's say when we launched, I think Stormageddon, there were some issues affecting those zones that made those servers like dip below that quite a bit, and so they drag the average down. But overall, the game server performance is way better. And
way
I think
better.
Having 600-700, we've pushed up to 800 players per shard, which is something we're pushing at right now. We'll talk about this if we talk about server meshing a bit more. And so we're going to be pushing this really hard moving forward. But I think that if you compare last year to this year, in my mind, it's not the same game. Completely not the same game. Like now, if we look at even the stats from our players, like session length is up like 10x. It's not even comparable.
Yeah.
So
that's no surprise.
play for longer periods of time.
I know I play for longer periods of time.
Server recovery is a big help for that. Though the stability of the game server is also improved dramatically, and so this is all because of the efforts of the changes that we've done, not only to the priority calls, like you just explained, right, which is taking where we're going and trying to slowly shift it to change direction, because a team like this of this size doesn't switch on a dime. It takes a long time for these changes to trickle in. But now that we've got kind of the big organizational changes in, that we're starting to see and reap the rewards of it, which is I hope is showing in the game. Anyway, it's showing for me, so I'm seeing it. So that's so compare 1 year back to now, I think it's night and day. There's still a long ways to go. I'm not saying we're happy with this. I'm just saying,
there's
quite a few in the comments. Quite a few of you in the comments have echoed that, right? Saying, if I think back 1 year, this is not even the same game. It's interesting that he mentions the stats there of session length being up 10x. Again, something a typical consumer of a product might not think about, but this is the way people are measuring progress and engagement on the back end. They're looking at things like how long does a player play on average, like what's the length of their session. I know me, it used to be like back when we were in the grips of the 30K, a 30K would typically end my session because it was just, frustration. Like I just get, what, I need a break. I'd stand up, walk away. Chances of me coming back were pretty slim. But now, if there is a server error, I get that message for a few seconds, and then it recovers, and I'm back at it. And that's definitely keeping me and my group engaged longer than ever before. So
there's folks in the chat specifically talking about, okay, well, let's go do Hathor and let's go do this, and you alluded to that there. You're talking about a macro sense throughout the entire persistent universe, every single aspect of the game. It's to call out specific, this specific area is bad and this specific area is bad. That's not what we're talking about. We acknowledge that and stuff, and those are areas that still need improvement stuff.
Yeah, I talked about this recently with some of you in the comments too. Whenever we were talking about the medbed changes, one of the pushbacks against medbed changes that I've heard is like the game's too buggy. I'm still losing my ships and I'm dying too frequently, and that does not match my experience. And I think one of the possible reasons is as a longtime player of the game, like I tend to develop a kind of a mental map of where the problem areas are, and I gauge for myself, like, am I in the mood to deal with the problems of these areas in order to experience some of the newer content, right? Like when Hathor first came out, it was a buggy mess for me. I still don't like Hathor too much because of its penchant for not working properly. But sometimes I'm willing to put up with it in order to attempt to see something new. Other times I'm not. And when I'm not in the mood for problems, I kind of know which things tend to work better than the other things. And so that's what I'll go do. And that's my message to all the people who are complaining about MedGel and bringing new systems online and the potential conflicts and difficulties we're going to experience whenever you marry that with some of these other systems that are not functioning properly yet. Like, you know what? If you're going to a place that you know is a mess and bug-ridden and tends to not perform well, like, don't put MedGel packs on your ships. Like, don't risk that cost or incur that expense. Like, you know what? Save the MedGel packs and that gameplay for some of the other areas of the game that are functioning better, and they do exist. Don't tell me they don't. Yeah, that's my feedback on that. But it comes back to what they're saying about, you know, certain areas of the game are going to be working better than others, and that's expected. That's par for the course. Like,
you know, as we do this Russian nesting doll kind of conversation and go down, we'll start drilling down to individual aspects later in the show. At its broadest though, overall, the things that would just prevent people from being able to log in, the things that would prevent people from being able to stay in, those larger scale issues that it
Number
doesn't matter
318.
if you fix the other things. If you're constantly getting a 30K, if you're constantly getting kicked out, if you constantly can't get back in, it doesn't matter if we've improved Hathor performance if you can't get to Hathor.
Yeah.
Those bigger things are what we're talking about here, and those have seen some measurable, marked improvements. I mean, an improvement from 4 to 5 FPS to 20 FPS is huge. Nobody even talks about 30K stuff anymore. Server recovery is, I mean, it's hard to make a trailer or anything. We sat there. Back when we thought about how do we make a trailer for server recovery and stuff, and then it's like we did it for 2 reasons. And I'm going to talk a little bit here about why marketing pushes some things and doesn't push some other things. One is there's no real interesting way to show it without, you know, you've all seen the server recovery screen. You're sitting there and doing that, but also I'm just going to be real. We're only 13 minutes into it. Well, let's get to a real moment of truth here right now. Over the course of the 11 years I've been here, we sometimes toot the horn like we've invented something that honestly should be standard. It should be standard. It's if we were doing things different, if we had different priorities at this point or whatever, that would have just been a thing we would have had before. So we couldn't have server mesh, we couldn't have server recovery before because we had to. It was part of the whole nesting architecture within meshing. So we had to build an infrastructure before you could have a recovery that would bring that stuff back. So the way that we chose to do things meant that some things couldn't come till later. I mean, there's people again. We'll talk a little bit about org stuff and stuff. You know, we still don't have orgs in our game and stuff. Those are things that are foundational that you would find in, you know, day one of other MMOs, and we're here, you know, 10 years into the PU and we still don't have it.
I find this funny, the notion of things that we should have standard, like not wanting to kind of toot the horn about server recovery because, you know, it should be expected that a game is able to recover. That's not how it works. Anytime you're building a large, complicated software system, it's not like, I know as an outsider, it probably seems like, well, every other thing has this. Why don't you? But especially projects of this size and complexity, like, they're all unique. It's not like you're standing on the shoulders of giants. You know what I mean? It's not like you can just take the foundations of this other game over here and then just start building on that. That's not really how it works. I mean, you're kind of starting from scratch every time. You're not. I mean, you could take the ideas and the framework of thinking and, you know, some of that kind of stuff you can take, and that definitely is an advantage. I mean, there's a thing called, you know, the first mover's disadvantage, the second mover's advantage, right? It's because you get to capitalize on some of the thought, because the thinking alone is complicated. So you get to capitalize on some of that's already transpired, and you've already gotten to see how it played out in other things, and so that gives you an advantage whenever you're not the first mover. But like, when it comes to the actual technical implementation, you're gaining very little from not being first. So anyway, all that is to say, I think they deserve to be able to toot their horn whenever they got server recovery working fairly well. I also understand that it doesn't make for a glamorous or sexy commercial, and I don't blame them for not doing one. But now I kind of want to make one just to be funny.
So I want to be real clear that when we talk about this and we celebrate our achievements, and I'm really proud of our achievements this year, and the stuff that Benoit said are real. This year is a night and day difference from last year. I think anybody being real candid and honest with themselves would admit that. At the same time, I want to be candid and honest and be like, I don't want to pretend like this was we invented the wheel and whatnot. This was the change that Chris set out for us last year. It's, hey, let's slow down, let's refocus, and let's find those things that we lost along the way and catch back up. Does that mean a slowdown on new features? Yeah, it does, and it has all year, as we said it would in February. But just a little reality check for everybody. I want you to talk about how we did it, though. We're going to spend some time. We're going to talk about freight elevators and all that stuff right now. But up here at the top, though, how did we do this change? What were the organizational changes and the operational changes that we did that made this possible and that are going to continue for the foreseeable future?
Well, so there's a series of things like company-wide that have had to change for this to happen. The first one, we talked a little bit about this in January, which was the idea of having hero cards or Joker cards, I call them, on specific issues, right? And so we've and then
this is a cool system.
People were like, give the Joker card to this other bug, right? And it's like, yeah, that's basically what we do. But we've extended that concept a bit further. And I hate that we changed the name, but we did change the name, and then we call those hero squads now. So what we've done is that we've taken a subject, for example, transit.
I like Joker
right, which
cards.
we've extensively talked about in January, and we've made a hero squad around it. So that means we've dedicated resources just to all the bugs related to one system, right? And we've changed the methodology. So the way that we used to deal with bug fixes in the past, it's basically engineers get the bug report, they put it in their task list. At some point, they emit the fix and they ship it in the patch. Now, as the patch release comes closer and closer, those bugs get verified and or need to be accelerated. And so it's always a bit of the fixes are valid, they're correct, but we don't have time to test them fully. We've had a lot of regressions, right? And so regression was becoming a problem because we were going too fast to try to solve some issues. And so some systems like transit are complicated enough that you can't just emit the fix.
I want to pause you there. What is regression?
Regression is when I say I fixed bug X and I've created bug Y.
Okay.
So it's basically when we're introducing new bugs or breaking other things because we try a fix.
Or I've slowed the whole system down
in general. That was in part because of the speed at which things were going.
By fixing a bug.
The code review process, things like this. So these hero squads, basically we flipped a bit the relationship. So we decided that fixing issues, let's say I'm going to keep transit as my hero squad example because it's an easy one to reason, but we've put resources dedicated to it. And then we got the QA teams to basically derive the priorities within the squad. So instead of saying, hey, production management is going to, drive the priorities, we got the QA leads to do that. And so now these guys were completely driven by player impact. And so when they look at issues, they're like, is this impacting players or is it a fringe issue, right? And they decided on the priority. And it turned out that priority accuracy was a lot better. And we asked those teams to be relentless into what they want to reach. And so classify the issues in order. And then the moment we get a green light from these guys, it's a celebration because they are hardcore.
I've seen a lot more Nathaniel Fisher this year than I ever saw.
The Nathaniel Fisher seal of approval is a real thing,
I want to inject. Brunks76 says Benoit is wrong. Regression is when old issues resurface.
Yes, that's also a definition that works. But we use the same word for both at CIG. But you're kind of correct. The proper definition is that's an old issue that comes back. But in this case,
things have a way of evolving in meaning. Technically, yes, but I also use the term regression to capture things generically. Whenever you fix one thing and it reduces the performance of the website, we typically say things like you have a performance regression or whatever. So, whatever. I don't think those kinds of distinctions really matter all that much, honestly.
Thing is, the issues are so close by.
As long as the team understands what you're talking about.
Surfacing an original issue. That's actually one of the issues with those big systems, is that bug reports are so similar, but are sometimes completely different circumstances. But
yeah, two things, three things, four things that all cause the same outcome.
Same symptom. Yeah, exactly.
So hero push squads. We got
Correct.
that. The embedded green light is what you just got done talking about. Letting QA sort of manage their priorities and green light things.
No, that one's a bit of a separate one, actually.
Right.
So the hero squads is really about getting our QA team to drive the priority on a specific subject and drive down, right? One of the change in methodology for the devs on those team is like a bit of a change in approach. In code review in these hero squads, we no longer just accept the fix based on code change. We ask the developer to explain what the problem is. Can you reason at why this is happening? Second, propose a change, right? And then the leads can validate this change before we start even writing any code for it. And then we verify the change with QA. And then that's when we actually allow the change to come into the stream at all, right? So we do a lot more work before the work is actually started, a lot more work before validation before it actually gets submitted. And so on those teams, like developers working on
he threw out the term pull request here, and if you're not a developer, that might not mean a whole lot to you, but pull request has to do with something called version control. In any software project, you manage your source code, which is, whatever language your program is being written in, whether it's C or Java or whatever. I'm sure in Star Citizen it's mostly C, C++, something along those lines. There is a ton of code being contributed to the project, representing all kinds of different work streams. And the version control or source control or whatever you want to call it, that's the system that manages all the code coming in, because eventually what you want is the player to receive, a version of the code, and the servers receive a version of the code, and that is like the final state, or the current final state is what's being delivered to the players and the servers and whatever. But all the code being contributed is in various levels of finality, various levels of integration, and so on and so forth. And so that's what this system is managing. And a pull request is nothing more than a developer contributing some code and saying, hey, here's some code I want to apply to the project. And there's usually a process associated with a pull request. He mentioned code reviews. That's one such process that determines like what steps this bit of code that a developer is trying to contribute, like what steps it has to go through before it finally lands in the final version of the code that is delivered to the player or the servers or whatever. And typically, like, you'll have a code review process, which is other developers looking at it, because more eyes are generally considered better. So, it's the developer who's contributing the code. They can't be the one that actually confirms that it's okay. Like, it would catch very little at the code review stage. So typically you'll require like one or two reviews from other developers. And what he's describing here is like they're placing some more rigor on this process to reduce the number of regressions that they're getting, and so on and so forth. I've done this on some of my teams too. When we've gone through particularly difficult phases where we wanted to be very stringent on quality or whatever, we've gone so far as requiring live reviews. Like our team would do like a daily chat or discussion in which the developer contributing the code would actually review and describe the changes in real time to a live audience, and the audience would have time to ask questions and make suggestions and all that stuff. And so there's various ways that you can implement more rigor in this process, and so that's what they're talking about.
Those hero push squads have a much more methodology to apply to solve that, because basically in the past the regression rate was too high.
Right.
And so the big advantage of that setup is that those teams are faster to react because they're dedicated on one subject. And so if there is a regression, because they still happen, they're faster to pick it up. But then the fixes are slower to put in. But that still has been very effective. So Transit is one of our hero push squads, which to me has been kind of successful since the beginning of the year. Like I think the transit system, we're going to talk a bit more about it later.
You just mentioned regressions still happen. This is another thing I see misconceptions around online often is anytime we see a bug or a regression or a new broken thing, like flames immediately erupt as people start criticizing the process or the developers or whatever. And like Benoit is absolutely right here. Like you're never going to prevent all regressions. Like it's a spectrum. Like you can move the needle, but it's like anything else. Like the more you try to reach perfection, the more energy and effort it takes. Right? Like if the needle's at the halfway point and you want to move the needle closer to perfect, like it takes a little bit of energy here, but the further and closer you get to perfect, the more and more energy it takes. It's kind of like trying to break the speed of light. Like the closer you get to light, the more energy it takes to increase your velocity. It's the same type of thing, and you're never going to get the whole way there. You're never going to reach perfection. We're always going to be seeing bugs and regressions and broken things coming out in these builds, even after 1.0. Especially if you're participating in an alpha or a beta project, like there's really no, you have no legs to stand on if you're going to be critical of the software delivery pipeline and process. Like it's just par for the course. The phrase you'll often hear behind the scenes in a team like this is fail fast. All right, like that's kind of generally the motto. It's like you don't want to slow down your ability to deliver new software. So what you want to do is optimize for recovery. Like push it out. If it breaks or you see a regression, make sure that you can quickly recover from that regression and that failure by quickly rolling back or whatever. There's a whole bunch of different recovery strategies. I'm not going to get into all those here, but that's kind of what he's alluding to whenever he says about the ability to react to these regressions and resolve them faster. That's my assumption, or the way I'm reading it. Sorry.
It's in a much better shape. The embedded green light is what you just talked about, which is that was a major organizational change. And so in the past, the way that game devs at CIG on the Star Citizen would work is that they would submit and test later. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but it is what it is. It was what it was. And so at the beginning of the year, we set to completely change this. And so we added this embedded green light process. So what is an embedded? So embeddeds are QA testers that are embedded in a dev team. So it's not, everybody has a view of like there's a floor of QA people, and then they'll receive a build and they test the build and stuff like that, right? But there's another class of testers that are embedded in teams, and they become specialists in what that team is doing, right? So, if you have an embedded tester in the FPS weapon team, those people know all about FPS weapons, how to test them, what change affect what, and so they can judge what they have to test. So the embedded green light is we gave that team the power to red light any change before it's submitted. And so that's a big culture shift, because it used to be hot and fast, get it in, we'll test and fix later, right? If there's issues, and we trust devs, to we don't trust devs, we need to verify, we need to check it, right? And the whole point of this was to hit on regression or side effects, right? Because our rate of regression and side effects was extremely high, right?
I want to I'm just picturing the comments. Somebody can screenshot Benoit and say, Benoit by Sejour 2025. We don't trust devs. Go ahead. Right there. Do it right there.
This is a common spectrum and debate in almost every organization I've been in, though. This is not unique to CIG. Every engineering team I have been a part of, there is a spectrum of trust in how much you trust your devs, how much they are restricted. You go into some organizations and devs have complete trust and flexibility. They can take code and they can march it the whole way to production with very little impediment. And there's pros and cons to all of this stuff, right? The pros there are velocity and ability to deliver. A lot of those shops that operate that way, they're delivering features to production 100, 200 times a day. It's your time to market is much faster in a pipeline like that. And I've been in organizations where the devs' hands are completely tied. All they can do is hand off code to a QA or an SRE squad or whatever, DevOps squad. You'll have code coming out of your devs, QA is involved in some manner to run some testing, and then the DevOps team is actually on the hook for taking approved code and getting it into production. And I tend to favor the former over the latter. I think trust is and time to market is valuable, and I think failing fast is often better generally. But then again, I've never worked in such an open development environment as CIG is with Star Citizen. And so I cannot possibly prescribe what the optimal level of trust on the spectrum is for a project like this. I would really have to spend a lot of time gaining experience within the organization before I had strong opinions on the matter. So in this case, I'm going to trust what Benoit is telling us, that they're narrowing in on what that correct level of trust is. And the pros and the cons that they are receiving based on the level that they choose are appropriate for the audience and the project. But nobody will ever see eye to eye completely or agree on this. This is a judgment call that has to be made by somebody in the end, and there is nobody in the Star Citizen community or audience that's going to be able to tell us better than what Benoit is. So,
right there.
Yeah.
No, I mean we've had embedded QA for years. This was about empowering them, in order to be a bulwark against letting this stuff through. Another new term I heard this year, and hygiene initiatives. Now, when I heard this was coming up, I thought it was something else.
Bathroom gameplay.
Anybody that's worked in a game studio knows that every once in a while there's that desk you walk by and you're like, I thought I knew what this was about.
That's not what I was thinking.
It was about. Right. What are hygiene initiatives?
I want showers to work.
So, this is not about BO, if that's what you're referring to.
In-game
hygiene
BO
is a collection of initiatives related to cleaning
code
up
quality,
errors, logs, and
I'd rather
in general,
it be about
just
showers
reports we get from the game engine
and
that
syncs.
can signify errors or not. So if anybody's ever opened the console in Star Citizen, you probably went, whoa, what the hell's going on, right? Because there's tons of messages going through, all kinds of stuff. Well, that's what hygiene is meant to clean up in a way, right? Now, these things will take us a long time to clean up, algorithmically, but we do have the same problem of signal to noise ratio in other areas. So like when environment artists are working in the editor, they get level warnings, right? Well, there's a ton of those warnings that are either irrelevant, asserts, warnings, right, and errors. And so the issue is level artist is going to get some warning. He's like, can I do anything about this, right? Oh, there's 50,000 of them. Probably I don't have to worry about this, right? The reality is one of those is actually an issue, right? And so the hygiene initiatives is like a collection of things that we need to change in how we build the game to clean up these things so that the errors are meaningful.
Again, totally normal. I'm dealing with this right now in my day job, where systems, as they develop, there are messages and metrics and statistics that are useful at some stage in the beginning. But over time, the this cruft begins to pile up, right? And things that were once useful to know in earlier stages of development are no longer really relevant. They've been superseded or replaced or just outdated in some way. And yet, for years, potentially, you'll continue to see these things. They'll continue to clog the pipes, the metrics. In almost all cases, it takes kind of a Herculean effort to go in there and clean things up and sanitize the data that you're getting out of whatever creation you're looking at.
We have the same thing on the data core side. So for those who don't know the game data, so all the records we use to configure, the components or all the game data, right, just stored in a database called data core, and there's a ton of errors in data core that are reported, schema violation, things like that. That they're not fatal errors, but they're still there, and we allow them to be there, and that's historical in the past. And so the hygiene initiative is a means for us to reach 0 errors in those areas so that we can then prevent them from even being submitted in the first place. So hygiene is basically pre-submit verification on things and concerted efforts to solve these things so that we can be in a clean house. It's like we want to clean the house, right? So that we can do better.
Somebody in the chat was saying, I missed it, the name. It said errors that should be warnings that should be infos.
Yeah.
Pretty common.
Bad classifications of things. So we even have now systems put in place in the assert dialogues and that pop up so that you can report a bad error.
You report a bad error?
Literally, now we get reports for bad errors so that devs can go in and fix the wording or change the severity or things like this.
And there was something we did so that certain teams, if the pop-up was directly related to them, they couldn't just dismiss it and continue with their work.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So I feel like an AI when I say that now. You're absolutely right. But we changed the way the assert dialogues work. So asserts, for those who don't know, is like when so I'm a programmer and I'm asserting in an area of the code that this value must be set to 1. That means that if the value comes in and it's not 1, then we'll have an error, right? That will show up. That's the assert error. And typically you need to action asserts, right? And so, or something else is going to go wrong. And so historically, the assert dialog was just a global thing. And then we still have those get assigned to dev teams. So they are classified by code owners and by dev team. And so you can know if it's an audio assert or if it's a, programming assert or whatever, which is great. But we allowed people to ignore those either completely or just skip them, right? And on the other hand, when you're actually testing the game or playing the game, you get these asserts, so you want to ignore them because you're doing something else. You're not in assert fixing mode. And so what we've changed the relationship towards assert inside the company so that now you can ignore errors for any other team but yours. So if you get an assert error, you need to fix it. That's it, right? There's just no, because the thing that we were seeing in the company was like basically teams going like, oh, when are these, I'm going to pick on audio, but sorry, Graham and team, I'm not picking on you guys, it's just random. But like, when are the audio guys going to fix their asserts, right? Whereas the reality is like we all have our own asserts to fix, and so we changed that relationship as well.
Yeah, it's again over years and years you get this mentality. So it's like I just need to do my work, and the game is telling me there's an error, there's an assert for some unrelated thing. Like what I'm working on doesn't have anything to do with that. Doesn't have anything to do with it. So you smash it. You smash. It's just like selecting all cookies because GDRP made the rule that now everybody's got to announce their cookies on your website. Now I just accept all of them. All you've done is you've made me hit a button. We get in this habit of hitting button and people, and this is one of those things like people. We're admitting this here, guys. Talking about where's open development. I'm like, well, we're sitting here saying that too many people got in the habit of clicking the button. It's
we've even found some. I'm not going to blame anybody, but we've got analytics inside the company, so we know who's putting asserts off, right? And so we found some shit.
It's just like the metrics we were talking about earlier. Like that's the reason you want to live in a clean house. It's the reason you want to clean those metrics up and logging and all that thing, because whenever you get things that are not relevant to you, you start to tune it out. And eventually you begin to tune out things that are relevant. It's just the way it goes. That's humans.
Paul Rendell, I miss you. No, I'm just kidding. That's certainly not fair.
Paul's a good guy.
No, he's
Paul's
a good guy.
He's the one putting the shit in.
I didn't know he was here either. I ran into him today.
Yeah.
He gave me a hug. I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was on hugging terms with Paul Rendell. That's nice. All right, so we've talked hero push squads. We've talked embedded green light. We've talked these hygiene initiatives that all help the way in which we make the game and make the patch and make our content stuff. We also started an initiative. I want to keep this under organizational stuff, but tell me if I'm wrong. The stability score things. Talk to me about our internal stability scores and how we've determining them and how we're using them.
Yeah, so stability score is, I don't think we've ever discussed this publicly.
No, I don't think so.
So we have this measure, which is an indication that we use, and the team that actually comes up with this would already tell you it's alchemy, right? Like it's not an exact science, but it does give us a pretty good idea. So we try to establish a stability score for every build, right? We actually auto-calculate it based on the data that we get.
And not patch, every build.
Every build, yeah, every build. So like we send a build to PTU, or QA or staging environments or whatever, and we always have a stability score that's calculated over time. And so what the stability score is, without going, I don't want to go into the alchemy of it, but we're trying to figure out basically
the alchemy of it. I love that.
Stability of the environment. And so if you're connected to a game server and you get disconnected, we're going to count that. Right now, the reason for your disconnection will be used as part of that. How long the build has been running is also part of that equation, and the concurrency of it is also part of it. And so, with this black magic numbers, right, we basically get a score out of it, and the score is one thing. Now we've put labels on this. So we used to use the score internally as just a number, like, oh, it's a 0.0 and it's a 0.08 build, and then at some point, I got a bit fed up with that because I'm like, what does that mean? And so the values for this are optimal, excellent, stable, unstable, volatile, crippled, or critically unstable. So that's the range, right? So we go from optimal, which is great, stability score, to critically unstable, right? And all of the thing in between, right? And this is based on, all the stats that we get, and we kind of auto-calculate it. Now, we still have Jeffrey Pease, our internal alchemist, always, playing around with these numbers or adjusting the score, telling us how bad we're doing it. But it is actually pretty accurate in terms of like what the perceived stability will be from a player's perspective. And so if I compare, what was September 11 last year? Was it like 323 or maybe 4 at that point, right? 323 or 4, I forget which one. I would say like the stability score for 323X was probably in the kind of unstable range, right?
Okay.
That would be a normal range for the 3.2X, this kind of thing, right? So the stability score, server score for 4.30, for example, is between optimal and excellent. And so that means the rate of server crashes and disconnections overall is really good. Now, this score is not just server crashes, right? It's also client crashes or client disconnection, right? So if everybody gets disconnected because one of our cloud routers dies, then the stability score of the build will be terrible, even though the servers are up and they're running real fine, right? So it kind of encompasses everything. We're trying to get one number for all of it.
What was the stability score for a 318?
That was critically unstable.
Critically unstable.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because actually the server, if you just took the server score for 318, it wasn't that bad, but it's everything before it. That's why it was so critical in the 318 areas. It's because it was really a massive backend, problem at the time. So yeah, let's not talk about that. We're past that now. But
the two things we don't talk about: that damn holiday live stream and Alpha 318.
That's right.
At least Alpha 318 had to happen. At least that had to happen in order to get everything that came after it. There was nothing about the holiday live stream that needed to happen. So,
you don't want the makeup? Let's go back with the makeup. Okay. So that's the stability score, right? So that's an interesting measure, and I mean, that proves
Phew.
that we've kind of really
We've
improved
come a long way.
the crash rate on game servers, so the server errors that you get. Now, we need to do more on the stability score, because with static server meshing, even the stability score is sometimes skewed. We have run into area local crashes that would crash loop a server, right, nonstop. And so that really contributes badly to the overall score of the build, but that's because it's one area. So we're discussing how we can do more territory-based scoring as well, so that we can get a better idea. So basically, what I'm saying is
seems
we can't
important.
get an actual just single number for all of the stability stuff. There's always some factors that, we've had AMD drivers or NVIDIA drivers issues that affected stability scores in some builds, and so yeah.
So how do we use that to determine whether a build goes live? Like, is there this? It's I see these. I see an aspect. Let's just pull the curtain way back. Why not?
Yeah.
I see the question. Is it worse than what's on live now? I see this question come up a lot in internal conversations. When, let's just be real. If we tried to wait for everything to always be optimal, we'd release very few things.
Correct.
That's just
the nature of shipping a game that's in development.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here try to hide or pretend otherwise. But so we know that not everything is going to be optimal. But where do we draw that line? How do we draw that line? And is it more than just, is it worse than what's currently on live?
No, we always try to shoot for better than live, right? When we can. But there's a lot of things that we look at to be able to ship a patch, right? Now, obviously, for this year, it was a very big change for the development teams, because moving to a 4-week cycle means that we are always shipping. Like, how we have a ship date, right, that we give ourselves, and a schedule, and then we've got our gate reviews, and everything is like chained up to get there. Well, the closer you get to this date, right, when you get from the player's perspective, when you guys see like daily PTUs go, and it's always update, that's because we're getting close to the release, right? And so we're trying to get to the date, and we're trying to validate all the things we need to validate as fast as possible. The focus is really on shipping. So even minor issues become top priority, right? And so it's been really difficult for the teams this year to keep up with this, because we finished a patch like, yay, okay, we're late for the gate review. Like literally, it's going like this. And obviously we balance this across multiple teams, but there are teams that unfortunately are, they're on everything, and so they're always on it.
Yeah, I think it gets lost sometimes. We of the many things we changed this year, we've shipped 8 or 9 patches this year.
Yeah,
it depends on whether you count what happened in April as a patch or not. But we've shipped at least 8 patches this year, and in years past, from the 3.0 era on, it was 4 a year. If we were like some 1 or 2 years, we only hit 3 and whatever. And now we've done 8 in this year. The velocity change has been tremendous.
Yeah,
tremendous. And it's helped, if I may, it's helped expose aspects of this. And when I say this, I mean making all of this. It's helped expose aspects of.
But part of the reason for that velocity change is the change in approach, right? Because they are focused on stability, patching, playability, the number of large features is far less than what we've seen in the years where he's talking about, where they only saw a few. So it's going to be much more difficult to roll out engineering as a system, right? Or server meshing, or I don't know what crafting and base building. Like those things are far more difficult to get together and roll out than Wicklow or the worm, right? So yes, the velocity has increased, but the magnitude of the changes has also decreased. Does that make sense? And that approach is what's enabling the increased velocity.
this that we're pretty good at, and it's helped expose aspects of this that we still struggle with and still need to improve. And just what you were saying just really hit home with that. We're in the process now of discussing adjusting the patch cadence for 2026. It's way too early to give any details on that. Nothing's decided.
Yeah.
But yes, this has been a pretty relentless pace, and there's a patch coming out in September. There'll be a patch coming out in October. There'll be a patch coming out in November, and then there'll be a patch coming out in December. So it's certainly a year unlike any other.
Yeah. Now, one of the things we didn't discuss about for this, in order to reach the stabilities, there's also internal stability, right? That comes into play with this.
I'm not familiar with internal stability. I've never had any myself.
Well, so this one is a bit more subjective because we don't specifically have a score for it. But if I go back to last year, right, the way we would develop the game, and I don't want to go too deep in the discussion about source control and streams and all that stuff, because that's just a rabbit hole. But in general, when we work, we have a mainstream where we work in, right? In the past, this was a melting pot of everything. So core technology, editor, toolings, audio teams, content teams, gameplay teams, art, everything, right, in one stream, right? And the fallout from that is that you go a bit faster because you're building things, you're improving the tools as you're improving the gameplay, as you're improving everything. But the reality is we also had major internal stability issues, which is, imagine that you're an environment artist, you show up at work, you make your little coffee, you pull the morning build, you're like, all right, I'm ready to work on my ASD mission today. It's going to be super cool. Editor crash, right? And now, oh yeah, the team's already on it. We're fixing it, but you just lost 2 hours. Right?
Yep.
And so we had major issues with this, right? And so when we started the year last year, when we did the show, just after the show, I think we went and finished this new branching strategy where all of the patches this year have come out of the same stream that we call SC patch. And this patch receives almost no technology update.
Yep.
It's basically us saying we can do this content with no new engine tech, no editor update, no tooling update, nothing, right? Now, that's not to say we are not touching the engine. We've fixed bugs, we've improved stability, but we bring these things, embedded green light, full verification, tooling check before they go in. And so it's really about moving all these checks beforehand so that we don't destabilize the content teams who are they're under the gun all the time to produce the stuff that they have to, and we don't want to slow them down. And so that's another reason for why the stability is better. It's because we are also not introducing massively breaking changes in the engine that we then need to debug at patch time, right? And so that's been a big helper on stability at the cost of features, right? That was the whole point of the year, really, so far.
And now we're changing some of that with tech preview. I want to hit one more thing before we go into a tech preview and stuff. Features are going to begin. Yes, Virginia, it's true. Features are going to begin appearing again in. I won't say the word soon, but they're coming. Before I get to tech preview, because that was a really good transition into tech preview, but I want to touch on one more thing. You mentioned the rise in session length.
Yep.
So this is one of those metrics that we've talked a lot about. We're 40 minutes in. We've mentioned a lot of things that have probably never been said on a single development a show before, or podcast, or whatever the heck you want to call this. We don't have to talk about session length. The amount of people who
important
are
stat, probably.
You hear about concurrency. Steam has concurrency numbers and stuff, but session length is a super important metric for stability and for enjoyment of the product and stuff like this. Talk to me about session length, how it's determined, other than just, hey, that's how long the person's in there.
If I were there, I would.
What's happened to that?
I would be very interested in this stat.
Well, so let's say the session length is calculated by you joining a game server.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Spicy SCO7 says 40 minutes in, said virtually nothing.
Okay.
Tell him, Jared.
Stop the whole show.
Sure.
Stop the whole show for that. Continue, Benoit.
I was saying the session length is
stop
calculated
this
when you
car.
connect a game shard, right? So sitting on the main menu doesn't
Don't
count.
make me
right?
turn
It's
around.
really when you're actually actively connected to a game server, and obviously it ends when you disconnect. So that sounds like a simple metric, and it kind of is, but it's very important because it gives you an idea of, like, you can have very high concurrency and a very short session length, and that means that's a terrible patch. It means people are going in. Let's talk about the patch we should not talk about. When you would get in game, if you could get in game, and then can't get out of bed, alt F4, end of session. Super high concurrency, but very low session length. And so the session length is a bit of an indicator of the quality of the game, but also of the desire of the player to keep playing the game. And so the longer the session length, it typically means that, hey, the content's being engaged with, players are playing the game, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm sure, some people go out in deep space and they mine, and that's it. And they can mine 4 hours and they pull the average up. Other players, go PvP for a couple minutes, and then they exit, and then, they drive the average down. But overall, the session length is like it's always a metric that we look at as a secondary metric to look at the quality of this. And so
I do a lot of different stuff, and every time I log into the game, now I don't play the game every day. I'm not like some of these other content creators who are in there day in and day out. I play a couple times a week. And every time I'm in there for 3+ hours. And I'm doing a lot of different stuff. And that was not the case 12 months ago. I'll tell you that for sure. I was lucky to get 30 minutes without a 30K, which...
The session length has more than doubled since the 3.x era of the game, easily, right? And obviously, in the case of server recovery, your session continues, and so that helps, quite a bit, because before it would cut the session in half. So there's other factors that contribute to it, but that's why it's an important one.
Okay, so now I want to talk about Tech Preview. So we used Tech Preview when we launched 4.0. Technically, 4.0 didn't launch until end of January this year. That's when it went to live. It was on Tech Preview at the end of last year. And we made these statements that we were going to use Tech Preview in order to bring these new things in and maintain the stability of live. It took 8 months. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we did a Tech Preview between January and late August, early September. Yeah. And now we're using them for the Vulkan stuff and the graphic stuff. Talk to me about Tech Preview, why we're doing it, how it's working, and let's just start there. I'll follow up when you're done.
Yeah. So, let's start with we didn't have Tech Previews in, let's say, April of last year, right? We started this idea of having Tech Previews last year, right?
Started
so
with the 4.0
kind of
right?
tool that we have. And obviously, we use Tech Previews in the server meshing lead up, right, to validate key assumptions, to actually isolate the testing. If you remember, when we did the major technical previews on the 3x branch for server meshing, it was taking the actual previous build with server meshing technology. So uninfluenced by new code, uninfluenced by the current patch, something we know is kind of in a stable range that we can use to test the technology alone, right? It's also a way to de-risk, just, again, bringing that in the stream and then going Cortez maneuver. Now we're stuck with it. We're moving forward, but, and so the Tech Preview has been invaluable for that. And especially for the server meshing project, that's been a super important tool, because we just don't have always the ability to replicate what players are going to do. And to be honest, even with bots and virtual, players and whatever, it's never the same then, 4,000 players filling ships with hot dogs,
And right now we're using it for graphic stuff. How's that going? Yeah.
So this Tech Preview that we're bringing in is more than that, actually, like behind the scenes, right? This is literally, I told you about the SC patch. So all the patches this year have been coming from SC patch. The Tech Preview contains all changes that we've brought to our mainstream. This is where the engine development happens. This is also where we bring back some technology from Squadron 42 back into Star Citizen. And we are moving all of this together up to SC Patch. So this will now become, when we're happy with all the testing that we got through on this, and it checks all the green lights, this will become the new baseline from which we build patches. And so
Cool.
right now, this includes, about 8 to 9 months of graphics changes, right, which have not seen the public yet. And so a lot of Vulkan changes, obviously, to the great pleasure of our great Ali Brown, who really wants us to finalize this merge so that we can bring this into players. And there's some great stuff in there. So a lot of Vulkan optimization, Vulkan changes, but also in a way for us to test all of these changes that we've been doing to the core engine rendering outside of the lab, because we have a graphics lab internally that we test on, but it never, again, there's never anything like shipping it to players and having all the different kinds of hardwares and configs and settings and driver versions that we need. And so
just as an aside, I don't know a whole lot about the graphics side of things. Like, that's client stuff. That's not my area of expertise. Through the process of doing this channel and producing videos and hearing from you all, I've been learning about this stuff more and more. So thank you. But one thing that has stood out to me recently is that, Unreal Engine has been kind of the gold standard in a lot of people's minds for graphics engines. I don't know if your experience follows mine, but recently, it just has not been performing all that well. I have a 5090, an NVIDIA 5090. I see some pretty poor performance in the more recent Unreal Engine games, like Borderlands 4. I just fired up, and I was surprised at how poorly it performed. Playable, but it's just definitely did not feel optimal. What else recently? Ashes of Creation. There's some, I don't know. I played, phase 1, phase 2, a little bit of 2.5, and now phase 3. And phase 3, from a graphics performance perspective, is the worst by far. It's practically unplayable at times. Rune Awakening was based on the Unreal Engine. Okay, not great performance on the client. I don't know. I've been kind of doing my own research and digging in on how to resolve these issues, and I'm seeing things online about possible issues with the Unreal Engine and the NVIDIA drivers, or, regressions in performance in more recent versions of the Unreal Engine. I don't know. The more I'm playing kind of these Unreal Engine games, the more I'm thinking, phew, maybe CIG dodged a bullet here. But I would love to hear your perspective if you are an expert or a lot on this stuff. Tell me how my perception's wrong here or how it's right. I'd be curious.
The majority of the stuff in this tech preview is player facing, but there's a ton of back-end tooling that comes with that. A major update to the editor with some new material addition systems and light group systems that are in dire need of coming in, and a major upgrades to our scripting system that power missions, right. Which the mission teams are, Elliot and his team are like, when is it going to be done?
For that.
We've been talking about those.
I'm glad you brought that
improvements and some of
that underneath that. It looks like it's just for the
roadmap
update, but yes,
that we've done.
The mission, we call it Mission 2.0. We call it a couple different things internally, but they are chomping at the you already said that. I'm reusing the same. Sorry, I saw a comment from Salty and Mike that said, talk about session girth, and I laughed and wasn't listening to anything you were saying for 30 seconds.
Okay,
because
that's cool.
It's a good joke.
It's a good joke.
It was a good joke.
Now, to be clear on the mission tooling there, right? This is part of Mission 2.0. It's a prerequisite, but it's not the Mission 2.0 system. That's a much larger endeavor that we're still on. But this time it's tooling, right? So if some players are tech savvy here, it's basically a visual scripting system that we're upgrading massively, which was, I think we've demoed this years ago at this point, but it's called the Subsumption at the time, and it's now called StarScript. And so the StarScript system is basically taking
a couple videos on this channel we've talked about
the teams are using now and making it much more reliable, robust with syntax checking, error checking, validation, auto layout, stuff like that the teams really need to build more quality missions.
I'm sorry, let me get this straight. You took a new feature set and you took the base word for it and then added star in front of it and called it that?
No, we renamed Subsumption, which was the original name, and then we put star in front of it. Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
That's right. Hey, we have a theme, all right? We're going with it. I'm rolling with it.
Roll with it. Hell yeah.
As long as you're willing to get called out by me every time you do it. All right.
I would.
This tech preview is obviously important. It'll be
naming's hard, man. If you got to figure it out, go with it
as it needs to be in order to shore up and then be integrated and then become the new base from which we create our patches from. What is the next tech preview? Go ahead, say it.
Well, so what's behind this, right? This enables us to bring in, I'm going to go back to streaming just to build the excitement. No, I'm joking. So off of our main technology stream is another feature that's been built there that needs all of this to work. And that's the engineering gameplay tech preview. That's right behind it. So the moment we can bring in the base tech preview changes, then we'll be able to do to run the next testing on engineering gameplay straight off of that patch. So that's going to be super interesting.
Yeah, so I want to be real clear with that. This is the next set of tech previews. This is. I want to go ahead and say, and I'm going to go ahead and say it so that if people can get angry at me and not you. Right now, we're using tech preview to test Vulkan and these and all these graphical stuff and all these mission changes and everything underneath and stuff like this. When this is done and get fully integrated, go to live and whatnot. The next thing is engineering. We desperately. I'm going to use the word desperately. We desperately want this tech preview with engineering out before the end of the year. Now, this is the middle of September. It's still October, November, December. That's still a lot of time. It's not any time when anybody would say soon. And that's no guarantee that we're even going to hit it. We've all been here. Somebody was joking, hey, drink it next time Jared says how long he's been here. Well, we've all been here. Lots of us. I've recognized some of these names for the whole time I've been here. We've all been here long enough to know that me saying it's our intention to get this before the end of the year is not the same as saying it will come before the end of the year. Just being honest with you here, but it is everybody's desperate intention to get this thing into tech preview at the end of the year. We want it. We need it. We're tired. We did 5-6 stories in engineering. I did like 2 or 3 citizen cons with engineering. Like it's time. 300, kick that mother out under tech preview, please. So we're trying. But I just want to make sure that everybody's super clear on what that means.
Hey, but on this, I got a little segue for you.
All right.
So there's one thing that kind of proves the improvements, right, on the live service is that there's a lot less players on PTU and there's a lot less players on tech previews than before, which is a good thing, right? That means players want to play the real game, and I'm really happy about that. But it does mean if you want to help, join those tech previews, right? The more people we get, even if it's for a short period of time, it's really helpful because we get a more larger set of people that can try it out, and that gives us more data.
Yeah, I want to talk about something. I got to show you sparked something that's actually a bugaboo for me, and I got a platform and I'm going to use it. So we did this change. We did this change this year. We went to what will be 10 or 11 patches throughout the entire year. This almost monthly cadence of live stuff. So you've got the live stuff, a new live thing going every month. People are like, put something new in the game. We've had a thing new every month. We've had a PTU every month that runs alongside it. Now we've got tech preview. This pace that we're at this year has forced us to split our audience and stuff like this. It's like, well, do you want to be playing the live game, or would you rather be playing the PTU version, or now with tech preview, would you rather be playing tech preview? And the reality is, we need everybody everywhere. The live version is the version of the game that we're making. That's the version we want. We want everybody to experience it. But we also need them for testing. So we want them to be in PTU. We also need them for the specialized testing. So we want them to be in tech preview. And it seems, and this is one of the reasons why I talked earlier that we're reevaluating the 2026 release schedule for this reason. We've created a situation where we want our players in too many places.
Want your cake and eat it too
at once. if I'm allowed to speak honestly, and I'll find out when I check my team's messages afterwards. Well, it's a thing that needs addressing. So and it's hard. It's hard. I don't know. Short of altering the schedule, which we're talking about, what more can we do to encourage people to participate in PTU and tech preview, other than us sitting here on the show and begging them? Is there something?
Yeah, we've got some ideas. To be honest, like we're toying with a few ideas, like incentivization programs or things like that. But this is slippery slope. You know, it's a very slippery slope. And I for me, I kind of like the kind of volunteer approach for this.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like we do have an issue where, we're testing this and we have the next patch is already cooking, and so it's like it's always rolling. I mean, at the same time. Yeah. It's a testament to our ops team that I want to salute one more time, because these guys are always on the clock. There's always a build going out, and so these guys are kicking ass. But
it's hard because we certainly don't want everybody playing nothing but PTU. Second a patch goes out there, the next week there's another PTU and stuff. It's like, oh, only play the worst, most broken version of Star Citizen, but we need your help testing it. But it's this weird catch-22 that I don't know that we have a real great answer for, other than adjusting the schedule, which we're looking at next year. And then it gets exasperated when we do timed events like Race for Stanton or whatnot, when it's like, okay, well, if you want these rewards that are only available during this period of time, then you have to be in live in order to get them. But then it's like, well, we got a PTU over here. Wouldn't you like to be in a PTU over here? It's like, well, no, I want to get the rewards. They're over there. And, we extended Race for Stanton. That helped with that a little bit. But it's just that there's...
We talked just a little bit ago about streams, and if you are a developer yourself and you're not familiar with the term streams, you can also think of it as a branch. And they're giving kudos to their ops teams and running these different environments at the same time. Just for some visualization, I wanted to... do a short little sketch just for those of you who may not be familiar with these terms or be able to visualize what's going on here. Remember this? Okay. So here's what they're talking about. These arrows here represent streams. And we have the main stream, or whatever you want to call it, which is what we're all playing right now on live, right? And then you have another stream, which is ahead of main, in that it includes everything in main, plus... I could be misspeaking to some extent, because there's quite a few different ways to manage this, but so I'm making some assumptions here. But let's just say it includes everything in main, plus the updated graphics they're talking about, with all the Vulkan changes, the new StarScript tooling, and whatever. And so one way of saying this is that stream is dependent upon what's in the main stream, which should go without saying, because that's main, that's base, that's okay. And then you have another stream, which is the engineering stream. And you can say that the engineering stream is dependent upon the graphics and tooling stream, which is in turn dependent upon the mainstream. So eventually, once the graphics and tooling stream is ready through tech preview or whatever, that stream will merge into the mainstream, right? So at some point, maybe, if we're lucky, maybe October or November, these two streams will merge, and the engineering stream will fall down to being the next stream in line, so that stream we begin seeing it on tech preview and so on, and eventually that'll be cleared and ready for merge, and that'll merge down. And so that's one way to visualize these streams that they're talking about. They're all just work streams. You'll have probably most of your developers working in the mainstream. That's where the feature patches that we're getting delivered now. You'll have another set working on, the graphics and tooling and that stream and so on and so forth. So hopefully that clears it up for anybody who's having a hard time visualizing that. Now let's get back to the video.
There's no obvious answer to this. I'm pontificating on one of the interesting challenges of our development model that exists that I don't think anybody really ever talks about publicly. And today we decided we were going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. So,
we're doing it live.
We're doing it live. It's one of those things we still need to figure out and address. BioNukes had a question. Hey, BioNukes, talk about one of those people that's been here as long as I have. It was a while back. I saved it, Bio. Why not have a set time for the servers in the back end to just reset every day? Why not just flip the switch every day, turn it off and turn it on again every day?
Well, so wait, that's one thing I forgot to put on the list of things we've changed this year, right? Which is that we take maintenance windows. We used to never do that. Now, why not do this every day, right? The issue that you get is that it's not just resetting the server. So, rebooting the servers, reloading the game shard from persistence and continuing, you're going to get right back in the same situation. So let's imagine, we're going to talk about cleanup and density a bit later, but let's go back to the 3.x days where we persist all the data in the shard and we have deep intersections. So a ship entered another ship, it's an intersection, is costing on the server. The server FPS is now shit, super low physics threads, using all the resources. And then you're like, okay, cool, let's do a daily reset, right? It's going to fix that, right? So you go through it, you reboot it. Cool. Now, server reloads from persistence, and those ships are still intersecting. And so you're right back where you were. So if you would look at the graphs and you'd see FPS super low, 0 during the reset, 30, 5, instantly. And so, what we've done in the past for this is now we have way more systems to deal with like this to reclaim performance, right, for these cases. So first of all, we detect them, but also we do emit fresh shards periodically. So we kind of decide when that happens. But when we do massive maintenances, weekly maintenances, we don't take every week, but we do it when we have to make configuration changes or things like that. We'll take a downtime, and we're probably going to emit new shards or run the repair on some of those shards. And then that will help. So we kind of do that. We just don't do it systematically because the reality is that's not completely how it works for the backend persistence side of this. And it's not something that we can solve easily because the conditions are too great. You need the shard to be live to solve these things, to be able to do it.
What about a traditional like every Tuesday scheduled maintenance period, like every Tuesday at 4 a.m. Eastern time, whatever? Yeah. Things go down for 2 hours and come back.
We're going towards that now, like where we basically right now you can almost consider that every Tuesday we try to do a maintenance. Typically early in the morning UK time is a good time in general, just because that's where the least players are playing typically. But that said, we don't take it every week because we don't always have to do it, and so sometimes it's not very necessary. But I'm an advocate to always take it, so that sometimes we use it to accelerate hotfixes. So in case you haven't noticed, we do hotfixes all the time, right? So we have this new deployment systems now, and we're able to roll hotfixes way faster. But when we roll a game server hotfix, it's going to take time to, what's the word that Ahmed uses? Percolate. It's going to take a while before it percolates, right?
Percolate.
Yeah. And so sometimes you can have a game shard that has, 10 servers, 2 of them have the hotfix, the others don't have it. So depending on where you're at in the shard, you have the fix or not. And it takes a while before all the game servers actually run into it. Now, obviously, if it's an unstable build, it's going to be much faster because then server crash, back new instance with the new build. But these maintenance windows give us the opportunity to also synchronize that with a client hotfix when it's necessary. And so we can take everything down, patch the client, patch all the game servers in one go, emit fresh shards if we have to, and then start again. And so that's why typically there's big changes that can come about in maintenances, and we want to use them more. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, we've completed our first hour. And
that was part one. Organizational changes.
That was part one, organizational changes. Let's take an interlude here. I'll ask you just a side question here. let you get a drink or whatnot. With our last patch, what was the last patch? The August patch, 4.3. There was a big curiosity with the wolf on PTU. Right before we crossed the finish line to release that, we discovered something that didn't show up in any testing and whatnot. Walk me through what happened with the wolf.
This is a beautiful one. That was fun. So yeah, like
Not
you
sure
mentioned,
what they're talking about.
we're walking up to 4.3. We're at the point where, pretty much everything has been, validated and tested. And, there's something with the wolf that, we're going to try to do more in the future, is that we try to respect what we call the art of surprise. Is that typically beforehand, we used to put everything in a patch, go. Now for certain things, we want to try to respect some level of surprise. We find that it's cooler for you guys when you discover things when it goes live and not necessarily on PTU 2 weeks before, right? And so we're trying
or in shows every week.
Absolutely.
Or it shows every week, exactly, right? So
I like surprise.
And so the wolf is part of that. And so the wolf was going on PTU for validation because it was part of 4.3 release at the very last minute, right? So like I think 24 hours before, just to all right, make sure everything's fine. Well, it turns out everything was not fine, and so we look at the reports. There was one crash that we had to solve, which was solved rapidly. But then we looked at some very curious reports, and so players would basically report. I forget the IC exactly, but something like, I landed with my wolf, exited the ship, and then was walking around. Then my friend took my wolf and flew away, and then the world despawned around me. So initially, it sounds like a fluke report, but then a bunch of people reproduced it, and it was like, I have this, and so like, what is going on? And so typically, then that's where our player relations team goes like, something's fishy going on here. So we started to look into it, and so we assembled a quick crew to check this out. And now this is kind of skeleton crew because we're moving to release. So typically it's very late here in the I'm in the UK right now, so it's very late here in the UK. US teams, it's night for them, So just get this crew on together, start looking at this issue. And so basically, the issue that we're seeing is that sometimes, when a bug starts with sometimes, it's going to be a fun one.
Oh yeah.
So
Those are the
sometimes
best.
when you exit the wolf, you desync between the client and the server. And what actually happened is, if you looked at so we have this tool we call the server renderer, which allows us to basically view what the server sees, right? And so think of it like a side camera that we have when we have access to the game server, and then our game client, and you can see what the server sees. Right? And so you'd see my character get out of the wolf, with that super nice animation, exit, and he jumps at the end.
Yep.
Jumps off the ship. Wow, it's like super cool. And then I'm walking around on my client, everything's fine. Game server, I'm literally in EVA animation floating over the planet. And the thing is, I can't exit this condition, right? No matter what I'll do on my client now, the server will always see me attached to the ship in EVA anim. So we're like, okay, what's going on, right? Now we start looking at this. So at this point, John Crew and I are, losing our minds trying to get a proper reproduction. But then we realized, we put new animations for this ship. So the Wolf was one of the new ships that have enter-exit animations, right, that are brand new, like just captured, import in the game, all that stuff. We don't do this all the time. And putting animations in the game is not just, put the anim in. It's like, it's timing, there's events to link them, there's linking them to the actor system, how they get triggered, inserting them into ship pipelines, stuff like that. And so we start debugging this. First step was, they probably forgot to put some of the seat events on it. So we do a first patch, we try it out. Now the QA guys come back like, nope, still happens. So like, okay, I think if the timing is wrong on these events, so let's change that. No, I think we went through like 7 or 8 iterations of fixes to try to figure out what was actually happening about that exact animation and why the ship system was disconnecting it. We went into full debugging on the actor. So the actor is your character and all the states it can go through. And we could just see the two differ, right? But it made no sense. Why is one working and the other working? So at this point, we're kind of running out of ideas. And so that's when I used a button. I called the bug smasher himself, Mark Abent, on the show. So Mark came in and was as flabbergasted as we were about what the hell is causing this. And then so we went into a bit more debugging sessions. At this point, we're deep engine side physics and collisions to try to figure out what's going on. And then in the end, Mark just goes within, in the typical bug smasher fashion, just goes into what about gravity? And so we take a look at how the ships have physics grids. These grids have sizes and mesh sizes, and the animations is based on the geometry. And there was no gravity in the ship, 0, 0, 0, right? And so basically it was a combination of the physics grid, the fact that the actor on the server runs at a lesser resolution. So, your client, when you're in game, is at full resolution. The server doesn't run at full resolution when he's simulating your character. And so combination of this would make the server would actually reach the EVA state. So now you're floating in EVA, right? But with no gravity and no other movement, it will never solve itself. And he's also overlapping over the grid, which is too big. And so that was a bit of a combination of like blunders, from geometry to wrong physics grid to out of no gravity, and it made the bug also not 100%. It wasn't like I exit the ship and it happens. It would need to happen like it took about 10 to 15 times you would get it one time. And so, all right, so we fixed the bug. We get this in there. Internal QA validates it, and then to be able to properly validate it, as we need players. And so that's where we mobilized you guys on PTU to come and try this out. And this was one of the best moments I've had testing in this game, where roughly 100 people showed up with wolves at Boondoggle on Hurston, and then 200 people are entering and exiting the wolf, right, to see if they get detached from the animation. It was a fantastic moment. And so that was awesome. That was a fun one to troubleshoot.
And that was your free audio only episode of Bug Smashers, as a nice little interlude there. I want to shout out Dennis Daniel, who's in chat right now.
What's up, Dennis?
Hi, Dennis. Miss you, man.
My man.
All right. Part 1, year of playability, our little Bug Smashers interlude. Folks watching, we've got another hour or 2 left, so we're going to be here for a bit.
Part 1's down. All right. We're probably going to wrap up the first reaction video here. I'll post this up. Y'all can start checking this out if you're interested, curious, and I will start on the remaining 2 hours tomorrow. It's getting pretty late my time, and I want to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as I'm watching this, so that I can give some good commentary. And from what I understand, later on it gets even more technical. We haven't even got to server meshing yet. Once we do, I'm sure I'm going to need the whiteboard a lot more. But so far, this has been great. I like the Bug Smasher interlude. Like, these types of bugs are like the most interesting, memorable, sometimes rewarding aspects of my career. Like, it's kind of like when you're playing a video game, right? And we talk about the game is the journey. Like some games, like modern retail WoW, it's become a lobby game. There is no journey anymore. You just kind of come in, hit a button, you queue into whatever activity you want to do. And that's great for people who are on a short time budget. But certain people, like myself, we like to really enjoy the journey and get immersed in the world and take our time getting around and kind of feel like we are in that world, like we're living there, right? Well, similar in my career, some of the most memorable moments of it have been like those emergent journeys and snafus along the way. You're shipping something to production. Your team's been working hard to get it done. You're at the go line. You're at the finish line. You're about to cross. And there's just something like this pops up, and it is a travesty of errors. Like, all kinds of decisions made along the way that intersect in some interesting way that you could have never predicted. And that's why, like, you know, software engineering sometimes is more of an art than a science. It's, I don't know, maybe it's closer to like chaos theory and that kind of stuff, where where the systems get so complicated that it becomes very difficult to predict how emergent these kind of bugs and system behaviors can be, and it can be tough to crack sometimes. Luckily, I've never run into one that couldn't. They all seem crackable eventually. It's really cool that the community came together too to help with this. I had not heard of the 100 people logging into PTU and getting in and out of their ships like this. That was very cool. I know if I were a member of the team online observing that, that would have been a wow moment for me. I would have been like, holy, like, I've never had a team of 100 people help me debug something, so that would have been truly a sight to see. Anyway, we'll cut this off here, and I will be back tomorrow for more of this video. I am loving this. It is everything I had hoped it would be so far, and I can't wait to get into what's remaining, and I hope you will continue to join me in that. If you have any thoughts about anything I said or anything in this video, I would love for you to drop a comment below, and we'll get into it more down there. I'll be reading these comments, so if anything comes up in the comments of this video that I think warrants kind of a more live response, I will try to include that in one of the later reaction videos in this series. And once all three of these up, we'll stitch all. They're saying it's 3 hours. We just got part 1 down. I'm just guessing. We'll do a part 1, part 2, part 3, but who knows? Maybe it'll just be part 1, part 2. Whatever it is, we'll create a playlist. We'll stitch these things together so that you can watch them end to end and do all that. Anyway, I look forward to the comments on this video, and I will continue the conversation with you there below. Until then, Grolo out.